Pulp Fiction is a group of short stories about two gangsters, two thieves, a retired boxer, a mob boss, and his wife. First, you see the two thieves debating if they should rob banks or gas stations. Next, you see two gangsters going to retrieve a briefcase that was stolen from their mob boss, Marcellus Wallace. Afterwards, you see one of the gangsters, Vincent, take out Marcellus Wallace's wife to dinner until she accidentally overdoses on heroin. Next, you see Butch, an ex-boxer, running away from LA because he crossed Marcellus and killed the man he was supposed to lose to in the boxing match. But when he was about to leave, his girlfriend forgot his father's gold watch, who died in a war but still managed to give to him. But after leaving with the watch, he sees Marcellus on the street, and they run into two serial killers who rape Marcellus, and Butch has to break out and help Marcellus, who eventually forgives him. Finally, cutting back to the gangsters, they take Marvin, one of the people who crossed Marcellus, with them, when Vincent accidentally shoots him in the head.
Marvin, what do you make of all this?
Man, I don't even have an opinion.
Well, you gotta have an opinion. I mean, do you think that God came down from heaven and stopped that?
Oh, what the fuck's happening? Oh,
man,
shit,
man. Oh, man, I shot Marvin in the face.
Why the fuck you do that?
Well, I didn't mean to do it. It was an accident.
Oh, man, I seen some crazy ass shit in my time, but this...
Chill out, man. I told you it was an accident. You went over a bump or
Hey,
something.
the car ain't hit no motherfucking bump.
The two gangsters stop by Jules' friend's house to clean out their car. Afterwards, they stop at a diner where the two thieves are there and they are about to rob the place. Each of these short stories has a twist at the end that leaves you with some unsettling thoughts. This scene starts with two gangsters, Jules, played by Samuel L. Jackson, and Vincent, played by John Travolta, who enter a room with a group that betrayed Marcellus Wallace, a mob boss. Jules then starts to take charge and interrogates their leader, Brett. Jules then explains how bad he messed up by crossing Marcellus.
Hey, kids. How you boys doing? Hey, keep chilling.
After finding the briefcase, Jules intimidatingly eats Brett's burger and drink right in front of him. He then starts quoting the Bible, Ezekiel 25:17. While quoting this, Vincent starts to take out his gun in the background. After finished quoting Ezekiel, they both unload their guns on Brett, and they have successfully finished their job.
Hamburgers.
Hamburgers! The cornerstone of any nutritious breakfast. Send this.
Sprite.
Sprite, good. You mind if I have some of your tasty beverage to wash this down?
Go right ahead.
That hit the spot.
The scene starts out with a close-up of the opening of the door to the apartment. Then, as Vincent and Jules enter the apartment, the camera stays outside of the apartment and watches as the door closes. This shows that what is about to happen isn't good and is behind closed doors, figuratively and literally. Through the scene, Jules is the one that is in charge. This is conveyed by the way he talks, and when he talks is a lot longer than Brett.
We're associates of your business partner, Marcellus Wallace. You do remember your business partner, don't you?
Once Jules killed one of Brett's friends and flipped over the table in anger, you see a close-up of Brett's face. But it is interrupted by Jules walking by, which creates the illusion of him towering over Brett and showing now he has all the power in the conversation. Then you see a mid-shot of Jules and how imposing and gigantic he looks compared to Brett. This is when Jules starts quoting the Bible. However, while he is talking, it is showing Brett instead of Jules, and in the background, Vincent is taking out his gun, foreshadowing Brett's death. After Jules had shot Brett in the arm, the camera switches from eye level to a low angle of Brett in the chair, and Jules looming over him. This angle shows how powerless Brett is, with being weaponless and having no one there that could help him. The first person to get killed by Jules was the guy on the couch, which, whenever the camera focused on him, would be from a high angle to show how powerless he was. Lastly, as the scene progressed, the shots with Jules would continually show him as taller whenever he was shot next to Brett. However, When Brett did try to stand up in the chair so that they would be eye level with each other, Jules did not allow him to stand up, which showed how powerless Brett really was. This scene is mostly unmoving shots that are edited together. The scene starts out very slow, with just talking, until Jules starts moving around. When Jules stands back up, the camera follows him, as if it's saying that he is the one in charge. In this scene, Jules is the one in charge throughout the entire scene. This is conveyed through the camera work in many different ways. One is how it always seems to be focusing on Jules, and the other is, whenever Jules is the one moving, the camera is the one following him instead of someone else, for instance Brett. Finally, when Jules was quoting Ezekiel, he was turning around to reface Brett, and the camera seemed to move with him.
And I will strike down upon thee with great vengeance and furious anger those who attempt to poison and destroy my brothers. And you will know my name is the Lord when I lay my vengeance upon thee.
Throughout the scene, characters' faces were cast in shadow at different times to convey what was happening in the scene. For instance, when Vincent didn't know where the briefcase was, his face was completely cast in shadow. However, when he finally found out where it was, his face was only half cast in shadow. Once Vincent had opened the briefcase and seen that everything was there, safe and sound, his face was fully lit. Afterward, when Jules was talking about vengeance, his face was fully lit, but once he was talking about anger, his face was cast in shadow to mirror those same emotions. Something interesting about this scene is the scene is entirely comprised of diegetic sound. There is no music in this entire scene, only sounds from inside the actual scene. This scene also is mostly dialogue. However, when there is a sound, for instance, the table flipping or a gunshot, it is extremely loud to shock the audience. One of the most prominent sounds in this scene is when Jules shoots the man sitting on the couch. This is so shocking because there is given no warning that he will shoot him, other than him being pissed off with Brett. Another interesting thing that the sound of the gun made was it put Jules back in charge of the conversation, because before then, Brett was seemingly winning the argument. This scene is mostly subjective from Jules' perspective. This allows us to learn more about Jules as a character, and it sets up Marcellus as a very evil man. The camera is almost always focused on Jules, or shot from Jules' eyes. This scene is very tense and dramatic, and this is thanks to Samuel L. Jackson's terrific performance, as well as Quentin Tarantino's amazing writing. This scene sets the mood for the entire film by being comedic, yet very dark and violent at the same time. This scene does set up many other scenes by introducing you to two of the main characters being Jules and Vincent, but since Pulp Fiction is not your average story and is instead a collection of short stories, one scene can't really tie into another scene.